This lesson is going to cover how you add a wall to the catalogue. On the right hand side we've got our folders with all the walls in it. So basically just select the folder you want to put the appropriate wall in, or the wall you're going to add in. The best idea is to find a wall that's similar if you've already got one, and then basically highlight it like I've just done there so it's blue, right click over it and go add. What that does, it actually copies the wall that you had highlighted. Now you can easily just go in and change it to something else if that was the case. So let's say in this instance we want to make a 50mm cavity, so we can just type in 50mm here. So on the basic tab we've got the wall set up to be framed. So a wall can be a general wall. If I click that, and actually you'll see that there's a few things that change. I've got a framed wall, which sort of you'll find that this framing member thing is greyed out on a general wall. When you click on frame you can go and select your stud. A concrete wall, a masonry wall, girt, log. They're the type of walls you can have. With the properties of the wall you can then put in the core, which is basically the width of your plate or your stud. So in this case we've got a 75mm, it could be 70 or whatever you want it to be. On the left hand side where this image appears, you notice that the A is green and it relates to A width for the core. So you can just type in there, you know what you're sort of keying in. The exterior surface, B width 110. So if I click on that, you can see the image to the left changed and the B is now highlighted. So the B width for the exterior surface is basically my veneer skin. So in this case I want 110mm brick. The airspace is the cavity, so we did change that to 50 from 40. So that will mean that the wall is going to be a 230, not a 225. So this is just a description up the top here where it's the name. So if I just change that, backspace, and go 230, I've got a new description, I've got the cavity, and basically that's all I needed to do with this particular wall. And if I hit OK, it'll add it to the list. But I just want to go through the rest of the tabs and show you what all the other parameters are of a wall. The drop-down exterior face is the distance from the floor or the bottom of the wall down. So I've got mine set to 300. So in the previous lessons where we've gone through the building locations, if you remember, I set my floor level to 300. So dropping my exterior face 300 will basically on my elevations show me that the bottom of the wall will line up with the ground if it's a level site. In version 5 we have two new things we can add to a wall, and that is a left interior surface and a right interior surface. What that means is if I type in a width of say 10mm in each case, that could add 10mm plasterboard to both sides of the wall. That's the whole idea of the left and right interior surface. I don't worry about it. It's been added for people who might do renos and stuff like that, where you can actually go and measure up on site what you have and then sort of add your interior linings to the wall and dimension to the interior linings rather than to the stud. So you've got the ability to do it, but it's up to you if you want to use it. The framing member, if you just click on that, you get the ability to come and select a stud basically. So I've got a 70 by 35 radiator stud. I know I've got a 75mm wall there, so if that was the case I can then sort of go and find another stud in there that's 75mm, or I could right click here and go add element. Again it's copied the one that I highlighted, so if I just change that to 75 and that to 75 and hit OK, now I've got a 75mm stud and there's the 70mm stud underneath, so now I can select that. If I just go back into that, wow, I've got it back here and it's telling me what the framing member is. Coming across the top with the name of the wall, that's just a description that I've keyed in, so it's a 230 brick veneer and it's got plasterboard on the inside. Over on this little preview window, that's the wall, how the wall's going to look. It's got a texture on the outside. If I turn it around, you'll see that I've got cornice up the top and I've got a skirting down the bottom. So that's the plasterboard on the inside. If you want to use this auto name, basically what happens is the description I put in will disappear, and it will be a name made up of the width of the wall. So if we come back up to the top, there's the width of the wall, 70 mil, and it's a framed wall. So if I change that to 80, you'll notice that the name changes automatically. Okay, so you can use the auto name if you want to. I prefer not to, so I untick that and I type it in. Coming across the tabs at the top, you've got the basic, which we've just gone through, the top and the bottom. Now, when you put a wall in, you can define a wall's height. Now, notice here, it's got define the wall height by location. So, again, coming back to the lesson we did with locations, my wall height in this particular job is 2440. So when I go and draw a wall on the ground floor, it will automatically adopt the 2440 height that I've put into my building locations. If, for instance, you don't want the wall to adopt the height of your location, you can drop this list down and go user define, and then you can key in there anything you want. You could go a meter if you want. In some cases, in my catalogue, I have dwarf walls for going around the top of staircases and so on that I've got user defined at 1 meter, and that's what they stay at. So they won't adopt the location. So this one, I want to adopt the location. The top of the wall and the bottom of the wall. Notice that in both cases the level is picked. So it's going to go in with a level top and a level bottom. If once you've put the wall in you want to slope the wall, then you come across to your properties of your wall and go slope, and then you have to then put in a start height and an end height for the wall to slope. Exactly the same for the bottom of the wall, you can slope it. You can step the top and you can step the bottom. Okay, so naturally stepping the top you might use for a feature wall internal of the house. That's the, I can't think of too many other uses for that. The bottom of the wall is intended to be used for step footings. Again, I don't tend to use it because I just sort of slope the bottom of the walls to suit the site, and I'm normally happy with that. You will notice that the wall tops have an additional one called auto extend. If that is ticked, when you put a roof on and you make an end a gable, if this is ticked, this will automatically lift your wall up and tuck it underneath the gable. If it's not ticked and it's set to level, you have to manually go across and extend the walls up. So it's up to you how you want to do it. Some people have that ticked on external walls. I wouldn't go happily and tick that on all the internal walls, because what you might find happening is you'll go and put all your walls in a very complex house, go and put a roof on, and then when you turn your roof off, you've got walls poking up in the air everywhere. So it's not a good idea to have that on for every single wall. Make sure you turn it off when you're doing internal walls. Now, coming across to trim, you'll notice what I've got here is an application for the left interior surface. If you drop that list down, you've got left interior surface, right interior surface, and exterior surface. So basically, the left side of the wall, I've got a crown on it, which is basically cornice. It's just the American terminology they've used. So the member I've got on it is a cornice. So if I highlight the crown and go select, I can then go and add or modify or delete what I want here. So you notice that I've got a cornice all put in there as a 90mm cornice. Hit OK, and that attaches it to the top of the wall. Now, once you've got the cornice there, this offset down the bottom here, if I go 10mm offset, that is basically, here the A is over here, that's bringing it down 10mm from the top of the wall to the top of the cornice. So what that will do, because I use 10mm sheeting for my ceiling, it'll actually position the cornice 10mm down below the sheeting. Okay, so when you do a section, it'll be correct. So you can be precise by putting in that offset. That gap B is if you want the cornice set off the wall. Well, I don't, because I haven't got any wall sheets attached to the wall. Coming to the trim, I've got a baseboard as a skirting. So you'll notice that there's a skirting on the bottom of it. Again, push the select button. I've got skirting. Go and select the one you want and bring it back. If you have a look at some of the other walls, if you do have my database, you will find that I've got skirting tiles on one side and I've got skirting on the other for wet area and and plasterboard, or I've got skirting tiles on both sides if it's a wet area wall. You do that to your left side, then you come to the right side and you do it again. So you'll see exactly the same type of application. And then the exterior surface, you'll notice that I haven't got any crown or baseboard. So that's basically because it's the outside of the wall. Alright. Some of you might have a question where you might say, well, okay, on the inside of the wall I've got cornice on it, but I don't want cornice on one side, and what we've done here is we've got cornice on the left side and the right side. With Envisioneer, once a wall goes in, if it has a veneer skin off it and it's a closed wall, which means it joins back up to itself, it will only put the cornice on the appropriate internal side. You will not get a cornice or a skirting on the cavity side, so you no need to worry about that. Under the appearance of the wall, on the outside, I've basically got an exterior side, left interior side, right interior side, openings, 2D core, 2D external, exterior surface, left interior surface, right interior surface, and airspace. So now, with this componentry of the wall, you can then set up how you want the wall to look. So the exterior surface, as you can see, I've got this brick texture attached to it. So I can click on the button. When the mouse goes from the arrow, when you move it over an image, to a little hand with a pointer on it, you can actually touch the image as well as selecting this button where it says select. So pushing the button or with your hand touching the image opens up the texture folder, of which you can then go and add, edit or delete textures from your database. So as you can see, I've got an image which is called brick. It's under a folder called DC default. If I come down the bottom here where it's showing me the picture of the brick, again the arrow's changed to a hand. I can touch that. I can then drill down further into a name. So I've called it brick. I'm using a texture, just not a solid color. And the texture, I've selected a brick. So it's a JPEG. So you can use a JPEG, a bitmap and a TGA file, I think it is. You can set the tile height, so you can see it's locked in, so both of them change if you change one or the other. When you typically bring in a new brick or a new texture, the tile height and width is normally set to 1000. Why I've changed that is simply what I do on my 8-foot ceilings, on my 2440 high walls, is I apply a new brick, which I've done in this case, and then I'll just go and count the courses going up the wall. And naturally I'm looking for about 27 courses, so I'll count it. If it's not 27, I'll just do a calculation and work out what I need to change this scale to give me a visual thing where it's about 27 courses going up a 2400 wall, and therefore it's going to render fairly well realistic. With the materials you can then say material usage, it's going to be a brick and it's going to be used on certain aspects. So you can come through here and select what the brick material can be used for. If it's not being used on something, when you apply the brick, let's say you try and apply the brick to a cornice, it'll come up with a warning saying it's not meant to be used. Do you really want to use it? That's what the material usage is for. Down the bottom with the renderings effects, you can then have presets of how you want the thing to look, whether you want a high gloss or a dull finish or transparent or mirrored or whatever. So you can actually go and set up how you want this image to render when you do the real pictures. Okay, so you can just come backwards. As well as having a texture attached to the wall or any element in Envisioneer, you can also have a hatch pattern. So when we do elevations, I want to see my brick in this mode, not that mode. Alright, so if I do a realistic photo for the clients, that's what I want to see. If I do elevations, that's what I want to see. And again, you can click onto that and you can drill in and you can create your own hatch patterns and add them. You can even load an AutoCAD hatch pattern. As you can see over the side here, it says AutoCAD pattern file. So it's normally called ACAD, ACAD.PAT. And you can sort of load that in and have all your hatch patterns that you've had in AutoCAD if that was the case. Then come down to your left side and your right side. Notice I've got those the same, so even the openings, the core and so on. So you just go through and change whatever you want and how you want it. Notice down the bottom here where it says line type, and I've got 0.25 continuous. Mine's in black, so again, depending on how you want the line drawn when you're doing your work and drawings, you have to select the line type if it's not already in the database that you have, and go and create and set the color and everything and the line width that you want to have it. Moving on to the quantity tab. Basically with the quantity tab, this is going to have a tick, and it's going to be ticked to say include elements in quantities. If that is not ticked, then the wall will not be taken off in the quantity file. That might be a case where you put stuff in to do renovations for existing walls or demolish walls. You might untick that because you might not want to know the information on it. If you tick it, the wall will be taken off. That's about all you need to know for this time being in this lesson. We'll move on. Thank you.